I think one of the most important things that influenced me when I was a kid was the internet. Like I got access to the internet when I was very young, and computers, and that was super exciting because I come from Chile, so this is a country that's separated from the rest of the world. We're in the far south end of the world, and we're separated from even our neighbors by like this huge mountain range, right, the Andes. So the internet gave me a chance to like start communicating with people from all over and become particularly very interested on other cultures and other languages. It started to make me hungry for different things. I decided that I needed to go live abroad. My uncle and my aunt had recently gone to live in Singapore. So I was in a high school, small high school, with students from all over Asia and from Canada and the States. And that was such a rich environment to appreciate culture, appreciate diversity, and get different perspectives about how life is. So from there on, I think those were like really interesting things that happened in my life that actually made me desire new things, desire to learn more about things, like it motivated me a lot and to go, for example, into science, which is always about discovering and trying to find out how things work. Bioquímica.cl, it's a company that basically tries to fulfill three different niches of needs. So one of them is science education. We want to change the way kids learn about science, but making really easy to use educational kits, something that the teacher can just open up and distribute along the classroom and have a ready-to-go experiment that would illustrate very clearly scientific idea. We're trying to make science easy to be understood. It's usually taught to be a very complex thing, but it's really not if you know how to explain it. So we devote a lot of time into thinking of creative ways to make a scientific concept explainable really easy through an experiment. So a hands-on experience that would illustrate clearly what a concept is about. For example, for the past year, we've been working along with the government in this science and technology camp that they've envisioned. So originally they wanted to just bring people from university to give talks about science and technology, and then they asked us like, what can you contribute? And we told them, what about just like getting the 100 or 200 kids into a lab for a day? Just like make them be scientists for one day. Let them have the experience of like doing a really sophisticated experiments without much previous preparation. And they were cloning genes into bacteria, and they had never ever before done anything of that kind. Afterwards, like videos and logs were recorded from each student, and they were just amazed. They just like had never imagined they were going to go through such an experience. On the other front, we're basically trying to change the rules of the game on the scientific equipment area. Basically, people that are doing research in the United States or Europe, they have a large budget that they can manage to acquire certain equipment that's crucial to do competitive research. So what we're doing is we're trying to change a little bit what's going on right now. Companies that are manufacturing new equipment, they basically charge a lot of money. If you take into account that in order for that equipment to get to South America or other countries, it needs to be imported. There has to be an intermediary, a distributor that needs to make money. So it's usually the case that you end up paying twice as much. And since it's already really expensive, it becomes impossible to acquire. So I think that particular thing is actually making researchers here less competitive by far, because they cannot have the latest equipment. They cannot be the first ones to discover what everybody else is discovering. So we're developing inexpensive equipment that can perform as well as expensive equipment, so that we can make science more competitive locally. For some models of the different products that we're building, we've been able to like bring the cost down by 60% in some cases. So we've done like, for example, there's this one equipment that we've made that's called the Gel Dock, and it has a really neat Apple product looking thing going on. And like you can normally buy that for like around $10,000 locally. And right now we've got it like around $3,000. And when they ask, well, where is this manufacturer? And the price here locally in Chile, they cannot believe it. They can't believe they're buying something that's better, more technological, that It looks really neat, and for like only a fraction of the price, we developed the equipment. We make technical comparisons of different pieces of equipment, and we showed scientifically, basically, that it performed as well. Integrate this consumer electronics into making this complicated detection. So basically, you're detecting a fluorescent signal. So the only particular, very specific piece that you need there, it's a filter that would only allow certain wavelength of light to go through into the lens of the camera. But we took a normal consumer electronic camera, like a pocket, and we put it on top of this box that we made look really neat. We put a filter precisely onto the lens, and then we incorporated this technology developed in the States by this company called iFi, which is a little SD card that broadcasts your pictures to the wireless network. Then we hooked on a monitor, like a 7-inch monitor, to the front of the thing, so you could see what you were taking in a larger screen. You didn't have to look at the little 3-inch screen on the camera, and your pictures were broadcasted onto your computer without the need of any cable. So right there, the researcher could say, by not having a computer control the hardware, which was usually the case, so they were saving like maybe threefold space in the lab, which is very precious, of course. And the equipment performance, if it had like a very complex computer in it that was like taking these things and sending them through the wireless network. So the integration was made from very inexpensive parts. It was really easy to make something very competitive, well-performing, and that researchers liked a lot. I think being able to abstract yourself from how things are usually done. If you're able to just look at the problem from a different perspective, I think it's really what takes you to the next step. Also, if you're doing things that are rewarding in many fronts, like for example, like one of them could be economical, right? You could be very motivated because you're going to get money out of this particular business or product that you're creating. But I think that's not the right motivation most of the time, because it's not going to make you really have this awesome thing happen. I think you need to have fun. The argument is about telling the researchers how much time they're going to save by not having to like have a lot of technicians do these complex reactions by being able to use this one equipment. So try to show it in their numbers. It's like, hey, you're going to free up one technician because he's not going to have to do this job anymore, so he can be doing something else in your research lab. You're going to free up the dark room, for example, because right now we're going to make this small dark room that's going to be enough for your experiment. So you can get rid of the dark room, you can get rid of the developing equipment, and you can free up a lot of space in your lab, which will actually let you do more with less, right? So trying to be convincing in that way. And on the education side, for example, the advantage of having a ready-to-go kit, we basically just like tell the teachers, for example, like you nowadays you have like tons of like teaching hours, and then you have to be grading papers. Like, when do you really have time to go into the lab and set up a new experiment? And also, like, you need to like be dealing with like all of the distributors, like finding out what the price of a particular reagent is, or they're buying in bulk, like things that are not efficient for them. So you tell them like, hey, we're gonna just like give you this thing. It's gonna be really easy for you to like teach this particular concept to the kids, and there's little that you need to do. I think I would be very happy if we could create an environment where very creative projects can be achieved. Basically, where we can envision different ways of approaching processes, both in education and equipment-wise. But creating a big team, basically a good team of people that like can approach a problem very creatively and without preconceptions of how it needs to be done.